In studio, Emery Hunt joining us as well. Bryant McFadden, fellas. That was a game that flipped on its head, and I think you can maybe point to that free kick there at the half. We can maybe talk about how that affected things, but I just want to talk about that second half by the Chargers, too. Played and have failed as much as they did in the first half, and then come out of the locker room the way they did. That was some impressive stuff here from Harbaugh's team.
Right, and it's funny because we normally joke about halftime adjustments and how nothing really goes on at halftime. It's so quick, you just right back on the field. But something went on in that locker room for these Chargers because they came out, they stopped the run, number one. They got off the field, number two. And on offense, we saw a much more assertive Justin Herbert talking about taking off and running the football. 5 carries for 45 yards. Made some key plays down the stretch. We also saw a defense really tighten up and get the Broncos off the field. I thought they responded well to the halftime challenge. Whatever went on, all of that combined with them not beating themselves in the second half is why they came out on top. Went on, what, a 24-3 run in the second half? Impressive job right here by the Chargers.
Somebody looked at Justin Herbert and said, fella, you're one of the best in the world, go be it. They asked everything of him in that second half. Mac, how about defensively? I'm looking at the play chart right here. Broncos went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown to start this game. Then it was punt, punt, field goal, punt, 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 field goal to end the game. What did you see in terms of a change there defensively, schematically? Was there anything in it for LA or just raised their level when it was needed most?
Well, actually, the Denver Broncos, they helped the Chargers on the defensive side. Because if you look at those 3 scoring drives for the Broncos to start the game off, guys, they ran the football. They were very, very efficient in running the football. A cast of guys in the backfield getting opportunities, and they were successful. The offensive line was doing a phenomenal job as well. But then when they got that lead, it's almost like, you know what? We want to throw the football. No, stay patient. Stay the course. I say this all the time. Offensive play callers are what? They're egocentric. They're egocentric. If it's working for you, why are you going to do something different? It didn't make any sense. So that really helped the Chargers because you talked about the Chargers and the inability. You got to look at what they were doing in the secondary. They were playing a shell coverage. First and second down, they were protecting the pass, not to mention they were dealing with injuries in the secondary. So they wanted to be a little bit cautious in terms of allowing splash plays. But for Denver, you ran the football against that shell-like coverage in the first half. You saw the same light coverages in the second half, but you decided to throw the football. And then when you started to run the football, guess who was lurking at the line of scrimmage? Number 3, and Derwin James. Anytime you see Derwin James around the line of scrimmage, he is coming. So you were actually playing into their defensive calls, and that was an issue outside of just bad play from the Denver Broncos in terms of the scheme, executing, and not to mention penalties.
You don't have to go too big pictures out of 60 minutes here, but Bo Nix, his relationship with pressure and the moment seemed to tell us something as this game wore on as well. You got a young quarterback, yes, but when this offense was in flow and on rhythm, on time, you saw so much out of Nix early on in those first few drives. What did you see down the stretch when his team needed it?
Well, I saw him not put the ball where it needed to be. You saw a lot of overthrows, some deep shot opportunities that were missed. And he started to panic and press a little bit more. So during the first half, you saw him be a little bit more assertive that we talked about with Justin Herbert. The ball was coming out on time. He was working the intermediate passing game rather well. But anytime he had to go outside the numbers, deeper down the field, that's when things went off the rails. And in the second half, we didn't see those same opportunities for him to take off and run. The Chargers did a great job of what we talked about at halftime, collapsing around him and setting up a wall on both sides and making him play downhill. And when he had to play downhill, the run game wasn't there for him, and it forced him to hold the ball and also throw the football deeper down the field. They took that away. And when they also started to see that he was hesitant to let it go, they got sacks on them. So the Chargers made some adjustments at halftime. They did something out there in that break and then went out there in the second half and completely flipped the game on its head.
And also, too, guys, let's keep it real. Now, look at this now. Look at that chart. Keep that chart up right quick for me. Bo Nix had 40 attempts. They had 2 double-digit lead in this ball game. Why is he throwing the football more than the quarterback that was chasing in this ball game? Make that make sense. That's what I'm talking about, guys. That's what I'm talking about. You had a lead. Guess how you got the lead? Running the football. The ground game paved the way for efficiency with your young quarterback in the first half. right? If you did a blind resume and you just look at the stats for either quarterback, you probably would say, oh, Justin Herbert had to lead the entire ball game because he had less attempts. No, Justin Herbert was basically chasing the entire ball game. And outside of that, in terms of the lackluster of consistency in the ground game, what about penalties? I talked about penalties. I understand we question the playmakers or the lack thereof offensively for the Chargers, but one thing you would not question, how well coached they are. They don't beat themselves. You talked about it, Emery. The Denver Broncos had 7 penalties for 61 yards the wrong direction. The Chargers had 1 penalty for 3 yards. 1 penalty for 3 yards. The Broncos made things easy for them. You look at scoring opportunities right before halftime. You asked what changed, Joe, in terms of second half production compared to first half. What changed was that walk-off kickoff, that walk-off field goal, right? The kickoff. They were not supposed to get any points. That penalty led to that opportunity, another scoring opportunity. When you talked about Justin Herbert, 3rd down, he's sliding. He is nowhere close to converting the 1st down. You get a personal foul penalty that led to a touchdown. So instead of the Chargers settling for 3 points, they got 6 points. So you're talking about a 9-point swing because of turnovers. You cannot do that, Denver.
He also had a horse collar and a defensive encroachment that extended a drive that allowed this team to take the lead there late in the game. I do want to talk about that, what we saw, a thing that we seldom ever see. A fair catch free kick by way of, yes, another penalty, Mac. Instead of the lead being 11 at half, the lead's 8. We could talk about what those numbers do, but what does it do for a team, Mac, in terms of, is there a moment of shock when you're saying, what are we doing here? They're not snapping the ball, they're kicking it. How many guys are truly aware of that rule on that sideline, do you think?
None, because Coach Harbaugh was not aware either. We rarely see that, right? We rarely see that, but to that point, the reason why that became a thing was because of the penalty. He's fair catching the football. Don't running into him. And then another thing, guys, Emery, Joe, think about this. Think about what led to the punt. Because if you remember, an interception gave the Denver Broncos an opportunity for the offensive chart on the football field. The first play was a screen play, right? You got negative yards. Now you got to understand, you have less than 20 seconds on the clock. So now what you should have done was run the football. Guess what they did on 2nd down? They threw the ball. So when you threw the ball, you got an incompletion. Then the clock stops. You're talking about less than 10 seconds on the clock. On 3rd down, you probably should run the football. Guess what they did? They threw it again. Guess what happened? You caught I think it was a short pass or something like that, but Coach Harbaugh used his timeout. And he was just hoping for something to happen. Guess what you did? You bailed him out.
It's the little things, and that's the minutia of the game and of the rule book. Emery, how'd you process that at half?
It was crazy because if you didn't know football or didn't watch anything past tonight, you would have thought, or prior to tonight, you would have thought Sean Payton was the only one that played quarterback. It was the only, you would have thought Jim Harbaugh was a defensive guy because he out-coached Sean Payton in the situational football aspect of the game. He bought time. He treated the last, and we were joking about this. It was like, wow, this game is going to end. This half is going to end early.
It was a college basketball 10 seconds.
Exactly, right? It was like, oh, man, we're going to stress this.
I'm going to use it.
Let's figure this out. Let's see what we're going to do. And he milked that 20 seconds and got 3 points. So now, from a defensive perspective, you're kind of like, wait, oh, we're down 1 score? Oh, we got this. So they had the added momentum and mojo going in like, cool, we got 3. As bad as we played in the first half, we're only down 1 possession. Let's go back out here and turn things around, and he did.
Unbelievable moment that was, and an unbelievable second half here from the Chargers. Have their playoff hopes looking all the more stronger. Coming up, we'll take a look at that playoff picture as the road ahead has plenty in it for these Broncos. A trip to the Bengals and then hosting the Chiefs. What's that playoff outlook look like following this loss? It's all coming next on CBS Sports HQ.